Desde este canal, desde este espacio convertido en plató, el espacio Movistar, lo que vamos a ir tratando es, vamos a ir desgranando todo aquello que surge de la industria 4.0, la industria digital. Y el primer panel, que ya tenemos aquí a nuestros primeros invitados preparados, lo vamos a dedicar sobre Edge Computing, materializando una fábrica realmente inteligente. Para hablarnos de este paradigma vamos a contar con José Antonio Aranda, Josep Martí, Renu Navale y Sergi Figuerola. Conversaremos sobre cómo podemos abordar los crecientes desafíos en las redes de comunicación y analizaremos también cuáles son los desafíos, pero obviamente también las oportunidades de este Edge Computing. Modera esta mesa redonda de BDIGITAL Pipo Serrano, que es director de estrategia y contenidos digitales de Barcelona. Pipo es un periodista especializado en radio, televisión y entornos digitales y que ha dirigido y diseñado estrategias digitales exitosas para diversos medios y empresas. También es autor, profesor, speaker, miembro del Consejo Asesor del Foro de Humanidades Tecnológico de SADE y miembro de la Junta de Gobierno del Col·legi de Periodistas de Cataluña. Pipo y todos, bienvenidos cuando queráis.
Muchas gracias. Gracias, Ruth. Bueno, esta sesión, bienvenidos a todos, la mantendremos en inglés. So, as I was saying, this session is going to be held in English. Thank you very much for being here. It's a great pleasure to be with this first session on the BDIGITAL, on the BNU. And the first thing I was thinking when yesterday just writing some notes about this is how many of you have asked for technical details when reaching the 4G or the 3G? Probably not. Well, sorry, maybe some of my colleagues in this session did. But I mean, humans, normal people, probably not. How many of you questioned the new methods for, let's say, clinical trials or surgery? Probably none. You basically want to know, I don't know, how fast will you recover, if your surgery is going to be friendlier or not, and those kind of things. But going back to innovation, what exactly would you expect when talking about technology? Efficiency, results, safer operations, something which has to improve things in your company, for your team, faster processes probably, so all that kind of things. If you are one of those, I have to say that you are on the right place, because it's exciting to be here on this amazing new event promoted by the Consorci de la Zona Franca, but basically by a bunch of professionals that, as they proved on the first days of this pandemic that Ruth was mentioning, this terrible pandemic, thought and fought against it literally, because some of them did it literally, but also imagining this new economy that we had to reshape and we had to think with these amazing challenges that we have in front of us. And this is happening on this phygital event, and it's phygital because some of us are physically here, like we are, but some are connected from many places in the world. I was saying that no one up to today told you anything about 3G or 4G, but I have to say that 5G and the edge computing will revolutionize your lives, and that's probably why you need to understand it. It will revolutionize your lives, but also your corporations, your industries, and many more. To help me with this, I have the pleasure to say hello right next to me today to first Sergi Figuerola, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer of 5G Barcelona and I2CAD Foundation. Sergi,
yeah, good morning.
Thank you very much for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
But as Sergi did, some of my colleagues were not able to just came across and be closer to us, but I want to say hello to Mr. Josep Martí, CEO of Nearby Computing. Hello, Josep.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hello, good morning, everyone.
It's great to have you with us. We also have with us Ms. Renu Naval, Vice President and General Manager of Edge Computing and Ecosystem Enabling at Intel Corporation. Hello, Renu. How are you?
Hello, everyone. How are you?
I want to say thank you especially to you. I mean, also for my colleagues, but especially to you, because what time is it at home now? At your home?
It's 3:08 a.m.
So 3 at night, in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hope we have an amazing chat, and after that you can sleep gently and nicely after this. Thank you very much for being with us. It's a pleasure. And finally, Mr. José Antonio Aranda, the Product Strategy and Innovation Director at Cellnex Telecom. José Antonio, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much for giving us the chance to speak here in the BDIGITAL.
A bit closer to us from Madrid. Thank you, José Antonio. And I would like to start with you, because I would like to make you a quick question. I know that the concept, edge computing, I mean, when Ruth was saying it, I thought, this is not catchy enough. This is not very sexy. It's not a sexy concept. I can understand that. But I would like to start by clarifying what is edge computing. And I promise that each of you, of those 9,000 people that can be connected right now, I hope that tonight you'll be able to explain it to your husbands, wives, lovers, whatever you have. But I'm sure you will be able, and yeah, I hope so. And to help me on that, José Antonio can make it probably sound, I don't know if sexy, but amazing. So can you make an initial definition? I will ask you, José Antonio, do you make an initial definition on what is edge computing? And after that, each of our colleagues will complement it. So you can start with it. Go ahead.
Perfect, and my pleasure. So basically, edge computing is a concept that was born in the 90s, but it is very easy to understand. It is to bring storage capacity and computing capacity closer to the users. And now with 5G, edge computing is going to become the new type of infrastructure that will be the biggest revenue opportunity in the next 10 years.
Great, quite a good job. I think that the people who's listening is not yet understanding everything, but we'll work on it on the next 40 minutes, exactly 40 minutes. Ms. Naval, can you complement it a bit more?
Sure. So it is, as Jose Antonio said, it is bringing it closer to the user. It's bringing computing closer to the user, also to the point of origination of a lot of data. So wherever there is origination of data, that's where we're bringing in computing. And what it is doing is it's reducing the response time or reducing the latency.
Great.
So for all the users can get much faster response time with edge computing than they did, let's say with computing at the cloud.
Great, that was a good point. So latency, less latency, it means faster communications. This would be like, although we're not in 5G now, we've got amazing technicians and people controlling this, there is no delay. I'm talking to Ms. Naval, who's a bit far from here, and there is no delay. So it would be something like this, really automatic. I don't know if we can complement it with Giuseppe. Can you complement it?
Yes, I think my colleagues have already introduced it very well, but basically edge computing is an unavoidable need when, for those reasons, latency, but also bandwidth, but also reliability or security, when for any of those reasons, cloud computing becomes underperformant. So another solution has to be at the forefront of our portfolio when this occurs, and that may happen in many occasions with the very much new solutions that come across with artificial intelligence, connected car, or any other things that will be something very familiar for us in the next future.
Great. We'll go with the kind of mainstream things, also with the industry things, which is also a very important thing at this venue. But Sergi, can you finish with the definition?
Yeah, I would say I'm complementing my colleagues, basically that edge computing is a crucial part of 5G. I mean, the 5G promise cannot be delivered without edge computing. And in the end, it will also enable new business models, which in the end is what will make a change on the way that technology is approaching the users.
Great, that's an interesting point. And you, as the guy of the 5G guy in Barcelona or Catalonia, are you telling me that edge computing would not be able without 5G?
I would say that edge computing could work without 5G. However, the challenges and the promises of 5G would not be able without edge computing.
Okay, all right, and we want to be loyal to the people, and if we promise something, we need to achieve it. Yeah. So there is something that happens with 5G. There is, let's say, some companies talking about edge computing, but today we've got with us, I would say, the majority of the perfect puzzle. Let's say we've got the key players that can revolutionize the whole thing, because you created, let's say, a new solution for edge computing. I would like, in that sense, to understand a bit better, José Antonio, what's exactly what Cellnex tried to achieve with this different way of looking at the edge computing?
Yes, when we started looking at edge computing, we see that there could be an opportunity to have spaces closer to our antennas where we can provide hosting capacity to our MNO operators, to the mobile operators' customers. But little by little, we saw, how about if we start growing in the ambitions and exploring other areas. And additionally to just providing space, power, and connectivity, we saw, can we also provide those servers, those hardware that are going to be put in the edge computing data center? And that's how we started engaging with Intel to define the architecture, to use the chipset from Intel, and together with Lenovo, we built different solutions to adapt edge computing needs of servers and storage capacity and processing capacity in the edge. So that's how everything started. Then little by little, we realized that together with other partners like Nearby, we could also provide some support on more the platform level. So instead of providing just hardware and server, how about if we provide containers, or how about if we provide also a specific capacity inside all these servers? And that's how we engage with Nearby, that are providing us that capability of virtualization, of orchestration. And on the top of this, we saw also that we could have an opportunity to also provide services. And together with I2CAT and some other partners, we are already working on potential services, potential applications that we can put on the edge computing platform and provide edge computing capabilities more stronger and unified.
Great. You mentioned the role of Nearby, Intel, Lenovo, but while you were explaining, I thought those people that I promised that they would be able to explain it tonight maybe are not yet understanding the whole thing. Just let me ask you, José Antonio, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then I'll jump to listen to Giuseppe and Renu and everyone. Is this edge computing like we've been working since a long time ago, having everything on the cloud, right? Everything is on the cloud, and let's say that those clouds were sometimes stored in a huge, let's say, land in Alaska. So it's cold and fresh and keeping all that data stored very far from us. So that means that every time that we were asking for that information, it's traveling to Alaska, coming back to Barcelona, to Madrid, to California, or everywhere. So the edge computing, what it's trying to do is let's fragment all that information, let's split it, and bring those little local need or necessary information closer to us, so that when we request that information, it's just in the edge of our building, our industry, or everywhere, so that we don't have to travel that long. Is that it?
Yes, you have explained perfectly well. I will just add one other thing is also where we are talking about use cases that requires faster response from the network, that you mentioned latency. So if I need to consult the network, if I need to accelerate a car or not, it is better to consult that with a node that is closer to the car. So that's another angle. And if I get faster response, I will have more opportunity to avoid accidents. That's another example that is not purely content, but also respond from the network.
It makes sense, absolutely sense. Ms. Naval, as we were saying, we need those little servers or bigger servers close to us. And here's where Intel can bring like the, let's say the perfect brain, the chips, the chipsets. How is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you were just saying, you want to have multiple edge computing nodes as close to the user as possible. So it could be on a light pole in a city. It could be on a industry or a factory floor. It could be in a retail warehouse. It could be in a hospital. It could be on a base station tower or in a telecom central office. So it could be in any one of these places, and the requirements or the needs of each of these different locations might be different. Some may need a ruggedized, if it's outside, ruggedized form factor that allows us to endure harsh environmental conditions, or it might need more compute capacity, so a bigger server. So what Intel is doing is it's providing a variety of different hardware, or silicon technologies, so that you can be as modular or as scalable as possible, so that the so Cellnex can easily determine, hey, what type of platform do I need for all of these different locations. So they can take some of the silicon technologies we are providing, and then accordingly design the platforms based on where they're putting these edge computing nodes.
Great. And we all know what's Intel. Most of us know what's Cellnex. We've heard a lot about nearby, but how can you even improve that, Josep?
Well, this is a team, and we have worked by leveraging all the capabilities of all the partners. What we want to give at the end of the day is an available solution, not a promise, not an idea that has to be built from scratch, but something that is already here. But I think that you just focus the real point that people, what we miss here in this table is what may be more useful for the end user, which is their applications. Users want some type of application for their factories, for their power stations, for whatever. The idea is that the technologies that are represented here, all of them united, can leverage all those available applications, okay, that are built in some way that need the edge, okay, so they can be really available to those end users. So we are facilitating, at some point, we are facilitating that the publishers of applications of whatever kind can be placed at the edge and can deliver their value to end users from this new platform, the edge. Okay.
Great. So we're adding some services in that process. And Sergi, you have to clarify. I mean, I've got closer. I mean, Sergi and I are closer, so I can ask him doubts. We were saying before that if we split that huge cloud in Alaska and we bring it closer to us, we will be able to work in a more efficient way with edge. But the question is, are we? I mean, when we talk about edge, is edge replacing the cloud, or is it only keeping it lighter and, let's say, in a more frozen way because it only shows what it's necessary, local, or whatever?
Okay, well, there are many things that I think that need to be covered also to answer your question, right? But coming back to what you were saying at the beginning, you were talking about revolution.
Yeah.
I was talking about promise.
Yeah.
The understanding I also have about also 5G, because it's quite important to put all together.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Is the fact that 5G for me is an incremental innovation in the infrastructure, but it's a disruptive innovation into the service. And here is when it comes into the picture, edge computing, as our colleagues were saying now. Just to put you an example about what happens in Alaska. I mean, you are right, you have to send information, but as I was also talking about promise of 5G. Promise of 5G means, for example, we are talking about latencies of 5 milliseconds. We are talking also on the fact on reducing the energy consumption. We are also talking about high bandwidth. We are also talking about having the chance that maybe on 1 square kilometer to manage 1 million devices together. So what does it mean? It means the fact that whenever you have to make this promise true, it's quite clear that you have to put together the application with the user, which means that, as an example, in the past, maybe in 4G, what was moving was the connectivity and the user, and you had the application in Alaska. Now, what we are trying to do to bring this promise a real true is the fact of putting the application together with the user. So we are able maybe to move the application together with the user to be sure we can give this high level of performance. And here, the important thing is that the fact that you might have different, I would say, edge computing distributed, for example, across a city, you are able to move this user together with application. This is a new challenge. This is a new paradigm, something that is changing the way you manage infrastructure, the way you manage the networks, and the way you manage applications. And it also happens because the fact that edge computing is facilitating what we call as orchestrators somehow, which means that for the first time ever, I am able to provide a high-performance service, which is composed about IT, which is computational power, together with network resources. And this is a big difference. I mean, we are used maybe that in the past, I would say the telecom operator was the one bringing all the infrastructure to deliver a service, but now maybe Jose Antonio will answer this also too, but maybe that third parties are entering into the game, and maybe the edge computing is not provided by the telecom, maybe it's provided by a third party. So there are I would say, new variables into the schema that provides new business models to provide this.
Interesting. Jose Antonio, you want to reply?
Yes. In the end, edge computing offers different possibilities. And it is true that the key stakeholders of edge technology are the mobile operators. And having edge nodes, the first thing that will happen, as you mentioned, is capacity release from the mobile operators to that central office. So if you have to go to, you mentioned Alaska, with fiber to get all the content, that means every time that a user has to access is a lot of capacity that the industry has to put toward that Alaska node. So in fact, the mobile operators through edge computing will have that storage locally and will avoid to have that capacity towards Alaska or towards the centralized office. We see edge computing as an opportunity for other players, of course, but we really see that most of the business in edge computing will be driven by the mobile operator. We see the solution that we have built as an option to help the mobile industry to have a platform that if we are able to find the good use case will be shared by the mobile operators. So the beauty of this solution is if we have one edge node that can be shared by a few mobile operators, they will be able to save in OPEX and CAPEX invested in infrastructure.
Great. I want to get afterwards into some use cases, but let me ask to Ms. Naval, who's a bit farther from us, but probably living a very similar situation from what we're living right now. Not as you, Jose Antonio, you're in Madrid, you're in a difficult situation right now with the COVID, but I was thinking exactly on how can this pandemic, or how would this pandemic change? I mean, if we get into some references from 100 years ago, we all have heard about the Spanish flu, and we know that that was a flu that was lived in a disconnected way in terms of what we lived on the last pandemic since March, or a bit before, depending on the country. But I mean, we know that we were locked down, we were confined, but many of us, I wouldn't say all because you know there is a huge divide, there still is, but many of us were able to keep on working, kids were able to keep on studying. In Ms. Naval home, like in Europe, one out of 4 or 5 kids were not able to study because they didn't have laptops or computers or connection. But let's say in a majority, there was a lot of people being able to keep on working. How would the edge computing and the 5G change and revolutionize our situation if, imagine, we would have it in a correct way 1 year ago or for the next pandemic?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, you know, what we would be able to do is for all of us, right? Those of us who work from home or our children who study from home, being able to access information in a very rapid manner, being able to, you know, have that bandwidth allocated for us so that we're not slowed down by, you know, my son starting to game by the afternoon, that's slowing my bandwidth down when I'm working, or being able to do these types of virtual panels and being able to be as part of a virtual classroom. All of this requires, you know, tremendous bandwidth. It requires, you know, low latency, you know, and for a number of industries, you also want security. So you want to be able to have privacy for the data. So having an edge computing node on premise, you know, on premise in a factory or in any other type of industry, that is really important because they don't want the data to leave their businesses and go back either to the cloud or go outside their premises. So the on-premise security, all of this is like really important, and it's really helped bring our world together even in the times of a pandemic like this, or in the future, even as we get out of the pandemic, I really do believe that so many of these things will require, faster response time, higher bandwidth, and higher security and privacy, all of which is, the crucial drivers for edge computing.
Great. I want to get into industries right now. I mean, we still have half of the session, and I want to get into industries and security and connectivity and how everything works. But before that, a last detail, José Antonio, about the edge computing, because I think it's important, and the way Cellnex was designing or imagining this new reshaped edge computing, the fact that you provide what is called a neutral host. What is a neutral host? What makes it different from other providers or MNOs, mobile network operators, or others?
Yes, the concept of a neutral host implies sharing infrastructure. So sharing infrastructure means that there are 2, 3, or 4 mobile operators willing to invest in an infrastructure and share cost. So the neutral host is an entity that helps the mobile operator managing that sharing capacity. It can vary from purely a specific site, where imagine you have 2 towers closer from 2 different mobile operators, so they can decide to come to a company like us and point one of them to be shared and close the other. It is as simple as this, and can grow into the edge computing aspect, where the edge computing capacity can be shared, and the mobile operators can come with their equipment and with their vendors to our solution, reducing the total cost of ownership of that platform, and also having more flexibility. We are incorporating into the neutral host the possibility of having flexibility or adapt to the needs. And one of the things that we have developed is the possibility of providing the specific edge computing capabilities to each of mobile operator depending on the requirements. So imagine one mobile operator may need more capacity during the morning, and we are able to allocate resources during the morning to that mobile operator, and in the afternoon it's another mobile operator that requires a higher capacity, and we allocate more resources.
So you're basically bringing it more flexible and more adaptive to the moment, and to explain to the humans, not like people like you guys, that you're in another level. And I know I'm not going to get into the towers, I'm going to get into a physical thing. Many people, when they require for fiber at home, they say, I want fiber at home. And then it comes the technical guy and says, oh, you don't have a box for my company. I'm from the red company, but you've got a box for the blue one. And well, someone would say, why don't you have a neutral one, which anyone can work, and we don't need to have so many boxes in the facades of our cities? It would be something like that, let's say, to make it easy. But let me ask Sergi, how is that 5G and that edge gonna improve? You mentioned before, and I want to get there also, the city. Yeah. But you represent our region, Catalonia, our city, Barcelona. How is it gonna improve our city? How can we imagine? I mean, for any of the people who's listening, I know if our families, dad, mom, everyone is listening, how can we explain them what's going to happen outside?
Well, I mean, I personally think that it's very important that we understand the potential that 5G has. Basically because we have also heard about the geopolitics that are behind and so on. But I think that I really appreciate the work that our colleagues on Nearby Computing and Cellnex are doing, because they're demonstrating that we can also be creators of technology and not just the consumers. And this is the nice thing of 5G, that will enable many new players to enter and to become these creators of technology. And we have to do so, because there's a big race, and it's quite important that we develop. I mean, there is a big concept in Europe also that it's about technology sovereignty, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important that we also maintain part of the technology that we have to develop. And then coming back into the cities, it's going to be a technology that will reshape the cities. I mean, one of the changes that 5G is bringing is the fact that, for example, now smart cities used to be reactive cities. But now we want to be proactive, which means that we are able maybe to reshape or change the behavior, the mobility scenarios of the city in real time. But to do so, as we were discussing, you need this edge computing distributed across the city to change in real time your city. And then also an important thing is that we were talking about moving the data center into different places. We were talking about lampposts, about street cabinets. I mean, a data center is a really controlled environment. When you go into the city, you have change of temperature, you have a different scenario, that you have many challenges to move your application over there, which is something that they are working on, and it's something that we will face into the city. We have trials with Cellnex also in the 22 at. We have a trial about what Jose Antonio was commenting about the neutral hosting, which is something that could benefit, also facilitate the deployment on urbans where there will be a mass deployment because there are a lot of users and you would like to have all these services for all of them.
So let's say that to make it even clearer for anyone who doesn't understand the technology, this will make that we'll have less accidents because the traffic lights will be connected with the cars and with the bikes. So no one can be able to jump over a traffic light, a red traffic light. At the same time, emergencies in case there is an accident will come up fast and they will be informed in a fast way. Everything will be really connected. Every single element in the city will be having those brains that can deliver the information in a really rapid way.
Yes. That's
the thing. Great.
And this is what real time brings, because it's quite important to understand real time.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that reacts as fast as we react.
Yeah, but that's interesting. But when we talk about real time, as Ms. Naval was saying before, and I'll go in a second with that, sometimes make us wonder if that's going to be safe enough. If we don't have time to think, is it going to be secure? Is it going to be safe? Can we prevent from risks? And that's why I would like to jump into industries. And I would like to know, I don't know if Jose Antonio or Giuseppe could answer me why this edge computing will make a truly smart factory. Let's get into industries.
Let me just ask a response, sorry, and then Jose Antonio will also complement. Sure. I think that new factories are about basically about automation, about robotization, about introduction of IoT, the IoT family of technologies, and that's something that delivers a lot of data. Okay, and how to deal with that data? First of all, you have to deal in a very fast manner, as we were saying, and then you have to process, understand, and deliver a response to that. So, for instance, if someone gets closer to a robot, closer than 5 meters, the robot has to instantly stop. Okay, but instantly means instantly, not at some point in a non-deterministic way. So these are things that are unavoidable for the new kind of factory that will require this kind of edge computing technologies. So, and this is for any kind of vertical, I may say probably yes, not at the same level, but for manufacturing for sure, for energy, basically, I think that if we want reliable networks, we will need this kind of technologies. Also, if you start thinking about how are the internals of all the industrial services, you can find always some kind of thing that can be very improved in a very strong way with the use of edge computing. Okay.
Great.
Yes, to complement what Youssef has mentioned, I think in the private network space, one of the key aspects of edge computing and 5G in general is the possibility of having lower latency. And we don't realize that, for instance, blinking an eye takes hundreds of milliseconds, or processing with Siri and your speech recognition, it takes hundreds of milliseconds. But in a factory, there are automation processes with robotics arms that needs less than 1 millisecond. And that's why edge computing and private networks go together, not only because of the automation of the factory, because some may say, yeah, I may just cable them, but there are some scenarios where you cannot cable, you need wireless technology. And there are other aspects that it was commented by Giuseppe. For instance, security is something, and safety of the employment are something that will come advanced and will progress faster with edge computing. There are different scenarios where we see that the factories will benefit We are already seeing demand of monitoring and tracking goods inside a factory and moving and understanding where things are. So that's something that is very important. And how vehicles that could be from a small vehicle bringing pieces from one place to the other, or it can be a drone surveilling the perimeter of the factory. These are examples of how factory can benefit from that data, that latency, and that power that edge computing will bring locally.
Great. So we understood that this is going to help on data processing and analysis, of course, if that gets so fast, and that of course makes a really huge difference when talking about industries because of automation, because of the way robotics can work. But Ms. Naval, I would like to know, I mean, I understand that efficiency is going to be much higher if we place those brains just right in the basement, let's say, of our industry. Is it really going to make is it going to be a game changer, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the most important aspects of edge computing is also being able to converge multiple types of capabilities or workloads. If you just heard, we talked about data. We talked about analysis of the data or AI, being able to derive insights from all of this analysis so that the various industries can take some actions from these insights. We also talked about, security, and we talked about, the industry-specific use cases or workloads, right, for automation, for time-sensitive networking or time-sensitive communication. All of these things need to kind of come together on one single platform. So the convergence of these workloads or capabilities, where you have computing converging with networking, with analytics, and in many cases, even things like vision inferencing or media, all of these workloads need to converge on one single platform for edge computing and provide, real-time, low latency, security and privacy, as well as higher bandwidth and very seamless and frictionless connectivity. So all of this is becoming very, very important for edge computing in a variety of different industries.
Hopefully that convergence turns into a real holistic way to approach the technology, not only on the physical way, also in the way we understand the whole system and technology.
Absolutely.
And Jose Antonio was mentioning something, Sergi, that I thought it was interesting. He talked about the 5G private networks.
Yes.
Are we really expecting to have specific private networks for factories or industries?
Let's say that it is already happening. Not in Spain yet, but it all depends on the way that you manage the spectrum. So basically, whenever we are talking, for example, on a private network, it's because you have your own ecosystems. There are other regions in Europe, for example, Germany, where, for example, manufacturing can have their own, let's say, infrastructure, and they can
Every
manage
company,
themselves.
not every sector.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But it also depends on the way that you manage the spectrum that you have and how it is located. So now it seems that there are some discussions also at the government level, Spanish one, to decide whether there will be some type of new regulation on the 700 megahertz, which is the one that is going to be, there will be a bit very soon, and whether there will be the chance also that different players compared to telcos can access or not this spectrum.
Great.
Let me just add something fast also, because it was into the discussion. The fact that you were commenting also on how we can explain also the whole picture to make it easy understandable, right? An important thing that we have been discussing, and our colleagues have also mentioned it, about the slicing. The slicing is changing the way that the network works. What does it mean? It means that, for example, we are used now, or the applications developers, to work with a unique infrastructure. Let's say that the 4G network, as we have nowadays mostly, is one infrastructure, which means that you have to adapt all the performance, all the needs of your applications to the functionalities of this infrastructure. With 5G, with the slicing functionality together with the edge computing, you can have several networks within the same infrastructure, which means that if 4G was the best effort network, that your quality performance of your mobile depend on how many users are connected to the same cell on your area, on 5G, I can discriminate this, and I can have different quality of services depending on the needs, which can be very interesting and very strategic depending on the type of applications. And at the same way, it means that I will not have any more constraints on the network infrastructure. So I will be able to design whatever application I have that someone else will be able to customize an infrastructure for my application. And this is a big change. So, I mean, we have to be ready because big changes are coming.
But that big change takes me now to what Ms. Naval was saying before. And Josep, maybe you can explain us that. I mean, we've learned that this can be a revolution, this can be safer. Although I have to say that I'm a bit concerned about that, because when I think on the beginnings of the internet and everybody learned from ARPANET and DARPANET and all these things, we all remember that someone explained us that decentralized nodes are better than centralized, because if you attack a centralized node, you can finish with it. So it makes me connect that part. But Josep, can you tell us why can a factory be safer? And we cannot extend a lot because I'm receiving lots of questions that I'm checking on the smartphone through 4G already, or 5G, I don't know. It could be everything. But and I want to ask you, and we only have 6 minutes left. So security, in 1 minute, and I ask you one question for each of you. Josep, whenever you want. I think you're muted. I'm not sure if we can listen to you. If not, I'm sure that any of...
No, I was muted, sorry. No, if you are thinking about safety and security, for instance, now we can control if someone wears a helmet or does not wear a helmet in a public work, for instance. And before that, before artificial intelligence plus edge computing, we couldn't do that. We can make a lot of we can create a lot of new barriers for behaviors that are just crossing the line of unsafety. So those are applications that are here, but they need a platform. They need a system that is able to deliver. And that's what we have tried to build, and that we are able to deliver for them.
Great. Let me go now. Thanks very much for being so short. We still have 5 minutes left. I have some of the questions that I was just writing down and checking. José Antonio, there is someone who's following you very close. It could be a boss and wants to test your memory or whatever it's going on. But someone asked you, José Antonio, apart from the IES case that you're working, can you go, well, it's basically asking if you can go through any of the cases, or the IES case, IES Business School case, or the new 5G Cellnex nearby Lenovo project founded by red.es to be implemented in Barcelona in 2021. So you can choose. It's someone nice. Or the IES case, or the one that's going to be projected in Barcelona in 2021.
Yes, I would say the one in Barcelona. Why? Because you know that the government is pushing the industry to implement 5G use cases, and they have provided funding for a consortium where we are all together from this call to build a 5G network in Catalonia, and specifically 7 use cases in Barcelona. And for that, we are going to build all the network together with MásMóvil, core network, edge computing, all the network. And with edge computing, we expect to enable use cases, additional use cases to the IES. That's why I like the 5G Catalonia concept. We are going to enable holograms with IES during 2021, and how this is applicable to the education. But we are also working with the local authorities, with the city council, to enable use cases related to security and how the police forces can benefit from this private network that we could create with edge computing and 5G. But also we are working on edge computing applied to factories, and we see the potential of using edge computing to automate process, to guide vehicles along the entire factory.
Great. Okay. Let me. It was amazing, but I mean, 3 minutes we have, and I have to go with 3 more questions. And you were mentioning, José Antonio, a project, and that made me think about another use case, that it's close to us. We are in Barcelona, you know, the beautiful Barcelona, more connected to Sergi, that also has some amazing buildings connected around. And someone is asking you about a project in where Cellnex is going to be connected, also Parlem, I2CAT, FIDA Barcelona, and the Boqueria. Yeah. What is that about?
Well, there are 2 different pilots, as José Antonio was saying. One, for example, on the FIDA, we will design a system based also on edge computing, also on 5G communications, on how we are able to have an automatic bus moving inside the theater. So how we will be able to move people, visitants, with an automated bus to facilitate the moving of the people. And this is quite challenging because you need to identify whenever someone is crossing, what you have to do, whenever you have to cross. So there are different challenges that you have to take into account, and also there will be some artificial intelligence, computer vision, algorithms, so lots of things together working with 5G and edge computing. And in the Boqueria, also to go fast, what we want to bring is the experience of shopping in a real-time immersive scenario. What I mean is that the fact that, for example, some tourist people come here once a year, they can only buy once a year. They can only have the experience, because Boqueria is not just about buying, it's about the experience. So how by means of immersive content with edge computing, we can provide a real-time assistance to people abroad, and to have the real experience that I am buying on real-time fresh food that can be in logistics sent back home.
You guys are blowing my mind. So we've got the teachers in holograms with Jose Antonio. We can go to buy our grocery or whatever in a virtual way with Sergi. Ms. Naval, giving all the question says, giving all this that is happening in the edge, what are some of the key initiatives at Intel that make service innovation easier and faster for the ecosystem? We need a faster one, and then we'll go with Giuseppe with small and medium companies, because I'm also interested in that.
So to do everything that Sergey and Jose Antonio were just talking about, what Intel is doing is coming up with innovations or technologies that can really help with the convergence of all of these use cases or workloads, and these can be hardware technologies like our CPUs, our processors, our accelerators to accelerate specific workloads. It's also some software toolkits like OpenVINO or OpenNAS or Visual Cloud that can again help our ecosystem partners like Nearby Computing or Lenovo or others to help go, accelerate, how we converge these workloads faster, so we can all go to market faster and fit together like puzzle pieces in order to make this a reality.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Naval. And let me finish with that one. Giuseppe, I would like to know, and for all that people that's listening to us, something on huge industries, but the question is, how can an average small to medium enterprise leverage edge computing for the day-to-day operations?
Yes, what I want to say about that is that perhaps people has the idea today that edge computing is a very complex matter, and perhaps technologically it is, but we have encapsulated that complexity so any kind of a company can have the benefits of edge computing, and that's very important. I think that, for instance, Renu was mentioning Lenovo. Lenovo has a full line of edge servers that have reasonable prices. There are lots of applications that can be implanted very easily into a grocery store or into any small or medium company. So I think they have to break that idea that this is too much complex, that it comes with 5G, that I think that they need to be curious about what can edge computing can be for them. And I think they have to organize and unite their needs so MNOs and technology companies like Thelnex can understand what can be very easily deployed for them. And so it's not something that comes in 10 years, but it can come, and it should come in 1 or 2 years.
Great. Thanks so much, Giuseppe. We're out of time. Thanks so much to all of you for these amazing explanations. We learned that you are a perfect puzzle, that you make things better and easier. We can have teachers in holograms, we can buy in a virtual way, or live experiences in a much better way. Thank you very much, Giuseppe Martí, for being with us, Sergi Figueroa for being with us, Renu Naval, thanks very much, and you can go to sleep now. And Jose Antonio Aranda, thank you very much also. It was a great pleasure. I would like to think that everyone will be able to explain it tonight to everyone at home. Hopefully it will be. If not, next time we will try to go deeper on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So many different and interesting ideas that you set off here, but I think I would stick to one idea. How would we face a new lockdown and being able to keep up with work and school? And It was really interesting what Reno said about being able to access all this information in a rapid manner, not being slowed down, but on the contrary, being able to have a tremendous bandwidth, she said, to host virtual channels and virtual classrooms. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doncs, pues ahora paramos este panel. Lo que haremos ahora es que a la 1, en punto, seremos capaces de ver una inspirational speaker con Marc Vidal. Nosotros nos encontramos aquí otra vez a partir de las 2 en este plató. Gracias.